Hi Rockstars, I'm Aly, your Rockstar bar girl, and today's video is a video that many of you have been waiting for quite a while, so I'm sorry it's taken so long for me to get it done, but it's a really important one, so I'm glad I'm finally getting to it, and that is a resume video. So because my resume is always updated, I don't have my own resume to really work on. So I was going to make a sample, just like a dummy beginner's resume and advanced resume, and then show that to you guys. But then I realized, well, if I'm going to sit down and make these fake resumes, I might as well just let you guys watch me make these resumes, and we'll just pretend that we're working on your own resume. After we make a beginner's resume, I'm going to talk to you about how to take a beginner's resume and make it an advanced bartender's resume. If the experience you have is front of house but not bartender specific, I'm going to show you how to take those job qualities that you've gained and the experience that you've gained and make it an even stronger resume for specifically a bartender position. So if you have already been waitressing or hostessing or even have bartended before, then you can go ahead and skip through to the second part of this video and get right into the advanced stuff. So there are a couple of differences between a hospitality resume and the type of resume you might be used to seeing in a white collar or a corporate environment, if that's where you're coming from. The type of resume that you're used to seeing is a fairly formal resume, and you don't have to worry about that in hospitality. The first thing I will tell you, absolutely positively, do not waste your money on resume paper. These papers are very nice, but they will cost you like $25 a box for just a few sheets a lot of times, and it's a total waste. In the hospitality industry, somebody's going to look at your resume for all of 2 minutes. It's going to go in the trash after that, and no one's going to be impressed with the quality of your paper. In fact, using resume paper might make it sort of obvious that you are not coming from a hospitality background. So just get plain white printer paper. If you don't like the look of plain white printer paper, then you can do what I do, and that is to get an off-white or ivory colored paper. I have the lights on right here, so it might not be easy for you to see. This is the regular white paper, this is the ivory paper, but the ivory paper gives that sort of resume look for the same price as regular white paper. If you want to go a step above regular paper, then you can ask for a parchment paper. Also, something that's different from a standard resume is the allowance for photos and images. Now, I have heard some people say that they don't think bartenders and servers should put their photos on resumes, and I've heard just as many people say the opposite. And I will tell you what I think, because I have managed a number of bars and restaurants, and I am so grateful when there are photos on the resumes. At the end of an open call, I may have just met with 20, 25 people. I may have been interviewing for 2 or 3 hours. So I don't have time to sit there and write detailed notes about the individual I'm meeting with. And a picture really helps me to remember who was who. Now, the reason why people find the photo a little bit controversial is because sometimes it is used to rule candidates out based on their appearance. I do not think it is okay to look at a photo and decide not to call someone in for an interview based on someone's weight or their height or their ethnicity or their gender, things like that. That being said, I do think it's totally appropriate for a bar or restaurant to make decisions about their front of house staff in part based on appearance. So if I am hiring for a 5-star fine dining restaurant and we do not encourage or allow maybe bright hair colors or lots of visible tattoos or piercings, I think that's whack. I think your bar or restaurant, no matter what type it is going to benefit incredibly by having someone interesting and confident and cool on your staff, but whatever. If that's not your aesthetic though, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It would be a waste of time for me to call that person in have a great interview with them and then be like, okay, so what are we going to do about your pink hair and the tattoo on your face? You know, it's like nothing. We can't do anything about that right now. There are some justifiable reasons behind having a photo on a resume, so I put one on my resume. I'm going to tell you to put one on yours, and we're going to talk a little bit when we get into the resume about what that photo should be, what an appropriate bartending photo is. Alright guys, so we are in my computer. I figured this would be like the easiest way to show you how to make a resume, just to go through it and let you do it with me. So we are going to start off with a beginner's resume. I've got a couple things on here already. To make a beginner's resume, we're going to need a photo, your contact information, and we're going to need an objective, experience, education, and skills sections. Okay? So starting off with the photo, like I mentioned in my intro, there are appropriate photos and there are really inappropriate photos. So obviously anything that is showing excessive amounts of skin or showing your underwear or anything like that is inappropriate. What you're doing in the photo matters. A standard headshot or photo of yourself head on, a portrait picture of yourself taken with your phone or your camera is fine, but you don't necessarily want to use, you know, a selfie from a night out with the girls. So no photos of yourself doing any bad behavior, and I would include drinking in that. Even though this is a bartending resume and they're more casual, and obviously this is an environment that's all about drinking, I still wouldn't put a photo of myself drinking in my resume photo. It's just not super professional. In terms of spacing of everything, playing with the margins, you can see my margins are fairly wide. Playing with the size of the picture, you don't want the picture to take up the entire resume, but you can take up a good chunk of the first, I don't know, I'd say fifth of your page with your photo. Then we've got our contact information here. You've got your name, phone number, and email. You'll notice that I do not have a mailing address here, and that's for two reasons. Reason number one is I don't necessarily know where this piece of paper is going to end up or who's going to see it. It's floating around a random bar. The other reason, sometimes a manager might be concerned that hiring somebody who lives too far away might be a problem. But honestly, that should be your choice, right? If you want to make an hour and a half commute every day and still be on time and do what's necessary to do that and all that stuff, that should be up to you. And a manager shouldn't be dissuaded from hiring you because of it. So I just leave my address out of it entirely. But you do want to have an up-to-date phone number and an up-to-date and professional email. So first of all, your email should be something professional. 69babydaddy111 at Yahoo is like not a good idea. You can get free email addresses from tons of different sites, so there's no excuse. Just grab yourself a simple professional email. Of course, once you get yourself the email, make sure that you are checking it. And the same applies for your phone number. Make sure it's a phone number with a professional voicemail, and make sure that you check that voicemail frequently and you delete voicemails so that your mailbox is not full. So let's get into the meat of things. Next, we're moving on to the objective. You don't necessarily need this line, but as a new bartender with not a lot to put on your resume, anything relevant that can take up space is a good idea. Your objective should say a little something about you, as well as a little something about the position that you are applying for. So you might say something like, sorry, I'm really tired, guys. It's like 6:30 in the morning here right now. I've been in bed in like 18 hours. Okay. Team player seeks employment with a high volume bar or restaurant for position. Okay. I swear I can type. I swear. Okay, anyway, so this objective statement says a little bit about me, and it says a little bit about the position I'm looking for. I'm a team player. You can use things like self-starter, motivated employee, hard worker, you know, all these great adjectives about yourself. I definitely recommend going online and finding yourself a free thesaurus that you can use, because words like experienced and hardworking and punctual, it gets boring using them over and over again. But team player seeks employment with a high volume bar or restaurant for a part-time front of house position. So the type of employment I'm looking for is a front of house position, which is a nice open way of saying that I am down to bartend or serve, and I'm looking for part-time. Then we want to get into our experience section, and obviously this is the most important part of the resume here. Please, please, please take the time to spell check. Spelling errors and grammatical errors, even when you're applying for the most casual of jobs, always stand out. Reread, double read, triple read through your resume before you start sending it around. So let's say that you are someone with not a lot of experience. The only places you've ever worked is maybe an internship while you were in school, and now you work at a local clothing store, you work in retail. So that's not a lot of stuff. But don't worry about it. A mistake that newbies make sometimes is they want to leave off jobs that they've had because they think that the job isn't relevant to bartending. But you never want to do that when you are starting out, because you don't have a lot of job experience to work with as it is. You want to put everything on there, because even if the position isn't super relevant to hospitality, showing that you have had some work history says something. So we're not going to leave off the internship or leave off the retail job just because they're not relevant to hospitality. What we are going to do is we're going to find the specific skills and responsibilities within those jobs that are relevant to hospitality and focus on those. So the way a resume works is you always start with your most current place of employment. So right now, I said we're working at, that clothing store. So we'll just say we're working at the Gap or something. You're going to put the name of where you're working and the location, and then your dates of employment. So let's say we got this job last year, and we are working there right now. Okay? And then we're going to list responsibilities that we had, or skills that we gained, or awards that we won at this job. So one of the things that you might do while working in retail is working the cash register. That is absolutely relevant to hospitality, because whether you're bartending or serving, you are going to be responsible for the bar's money, whether you have a register or you carry cash around on you. So we'll say something like, so we'll say, that you're responsible for your cash register, accounting, and the end of the night sales drop. But that is one example of something that you were responsible for, or a skill that you learned while in hospitality or while in retail that you can argue is relevant to hospitality. In retail, you have to work directly with customers. You have to have face-to-face exchanges with them and deliver good customer service. And that is definitely relevant to hospitality. So we might want to talk about that. So we might say something like, putting emphasis on the fact that you were in constant contact with customers and guests. You definitely want to mention any types of awards, accolades, recognitions that you get in any job that you have. So let's say, because you're just so great at folding those sweaters, you've received, you got Employee of the Month a couple of times. So now let's give the internship a shot. And we'll just literally call it legal internship. Again, we're going to list the location and the dates that we were there. Let's say this was like an internship for like your last year of school. So it was for the whole year. So let's put the whole year. Now, this is one of the harder things to do. Taking something like retail and translating it into hospitality is not that difficult. There are a lot of similarities in the two job fields. When it comes to a job that's purely academic, purely white collar, translating that into the blue collar world is hard. Researching and reading and typing don't have much to do with hospitality at all. So this one is a little bit more difficult and will be a little bit more of a stretch. So first of all, because it might not be obvious from the name of the firm that you're working for or the business that you were interning for, it might not be obvious from the name what you were doing. You might want to start off with something like that. And this line is honestly kind of just a space saver. It doesn't really say anything about your responsibilities or your skills particularly, but it is important for the employer to have some idea what you were doing. So we're going to put this in here. Okay, so let's say you worked for a startup or a small business law firm. Being a law clerk just means basically that you're the assistant to the attorneys. You might like do deliveries for the attorneys. When you're doing deliveries for the attorneys, these are typically going to be like legal documents. That is something that shows that you're used to reporting to a superior of some kind. Well, when you're working in hospitality, especially starting out, you're going to have a supervisor, a manager of some kind. And you might want to show that you are comfortable with that. That in itself is a skill that's sort of relevant. Again, it's a little bit more of a reach, but so we might say something like, something like that. Okay. Sorry guys, my word like unexpectedly quit. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, I had to like redo some stuff. Okay, control save. So for the last thing that we're going to put in for our legal internship is, because I like to do no less than 3 responsibilities or skills for each type of employment in a beginner resume and no more than 5. Another thing that you might do as a law clerk is to work for multiple attorneys at once. Since you're an assistant, you might have multiple attorneys that you're helping out. Well, helping out multiple people means that you might be working on multiple things at once, and multitasking is definitely important to hospitality. And again, these things are a reach, but I'm showing you how you can take something that doesn't really seem like it has anything to do with hospitality and make it seem like it kind of does. So I might say something like, okay. If you feel like what you're saying isn't really doing that, then you could flesh it out a little bit and make it more obvious and say something like developing my ability to multitask. Okay? So now we've got our 2 types of employment, our most current, our retail employment at this store, The Gap, and our internship. We've got 3 skills or responsibilities for each. And we have spell checked, grammar checked, and made sure that we've written everything in bullets that are short and to the point. Next, we have our education. When listing your education, you don't want to go back any further than high school. I once got a resume that had like literally everything back to kindergarten. You don't want to do that. That's not necessary. And then you want to put the dates that you were there. And you can put your degree as well. Or if you haven't received your degree yet, then you can just put your dates of attendance. And then you want to list any certifications that you have. So back in the day, I took a flair course. So any certifications that could be relevant, whether you have, CPR and first aid, accounting classes, any business management classes, really any type of certification or certificate that you could have gotten, in addition to like your formal education, you can list as well. And a resume is always, always, always one page. That's really important. No two-page resumes. So the last part of a resume here is going to be a skills section. This is the one area where you don't really want to try to make a reach. Okay? You don't want to list all of the skills you've ever had in your life. You really just want to list the ones that are relevant to hospitality here. So if you can type really fast, if you are proficient in computer programs like Word or Excel, you want to leave that off. That's totally irrelevant. Food handlers or alcohol safety like tips or something like that. If you speak multiple languages, that is definitely a very useful skill for hospitality, because people of all walks of life are going to come in to the bar, and people of all different types of languages and backgrounds will work with you at your bar. So being bilingual to any degree is certainly helpful, and that's definitely a skill. Let's say you really have nothing to put in this section. Go ahead and just put languages spoken English, because you'd be surprised. There are a lot of jobs where they really, for whatever reason, emphasize an English speaker, even though it seems like a given because we're in America, but it is a skill. So you can list just that if that's the only thing that you have. So I'm going to zoom out of this so that we can see the whole resume all in one, a little bit easier. And as you can see, by formatting everything on the right, going with really short and concise sentences, and adding a photo, big margins, and an objective line, we've been able to really fill this out. If I move anything just by a line, I'm on to 2 pages. So just following these few tips, we were able to take 2 jobs that we haven't worked at for very long, that don't seem super relevant to hospitality, and make a resume that looks pretty nice. So this is what you're looking for when it comes to a beginner's resume. If you found this useful, definitely make sure you subscribe, and check out part 2 of the resume video where we look at advanced bartender resumes and cover letters. Bye, Rockstars.